Welcome back to this 1 hour Justice Factor special as we look at Nelson Mandela, the militant who brought the South Africa at war back together. My guests are former MK Military Veterans Association head Kebby Maphanstoe. With him is Ambassador Lindiwe Zulu, a former MK combatant and now President Zuma's special envoy to Zimbabwe. Lindiwe, let's continue the conversation. All these men of peace, these women of peace, decide to go to war. When you met Nelson Mandela and others as you speak to them, that must have had a massive psychological impact on all of them.
Of course it did, but you must also recall that by the time that he visited us, the leadership or the commanding structures of Africa, of the Umkhonto Wesizwe then, had already done the rounds to the camps in Angola, in Uganda and everywhere to explain to us the process that had started in '86. That was the negotiations process. And that negotiations process, I can tell you, it didn't sit in very well with us in the camps, because we were there, we were doing the military training, we were raring to come back home, we were thinking that the tanks would roll down the roads of Pretoria and would have our people ululating and welcoming us back home. And all of a sudden we were being told, well, now there's a negotiations process. Of course, it didn't take long for us to understand that, because the ANC has never believed that the only solution to the South African conflict at the time would only be through the armed struggle. The negotiations process and finding a solution that was peaceful was always somewhere along the line. But for us, we just couldn't accept that.
I want you to tell me about that moment, because I remember that day, August 6, 1990, when I think the Pretoria Minute was signed, and that was the armed struggle has been suspended. How did Nelson Mandela sell it to the two of you, to all your comrades in the camps?
Well, the fact that he had spent 27 years in prison and he came out with the kind of message that he was carrying coming out was important for us. But secondly, we always believed in him, as we believed in him up to the last. So we believed that he wouldn't come to the camps visiting us and bringing a message that had not been sifted through and discussed with the leadership. And recall also at the time that O.R. Tambo, who had been with him during their youth times, was still alive, and he also came to visit us in the camp. Unfortunately, at the time, that was when he had had the stroke. So he had also been to the camps in preparing us to accept the negotiations process that was taking place. So for us, for Mandela to be there, it was good.
Kebby, were you like Lindiwe? Did you buy that story? You must have also been a very angry young man in those camps.
You know what makes the difference between MK members and other armies is because we had political discussions. So there were very serious discussions about the suspension of the armed struggle. In fact, I remember in one of the discussions, political classes, not classes, education discussions, there was this thing that it seems as if the ANC is suspending the armed struggle unilaterally without even informing the active members of Umkhonto Wesizwe. But because we had trust and understanding that armed struggle was part of a tactic of a broader picture of attaining our freedom, we agreed that armed struggle is going to be suspended, but after having been engaged with the Harare Declaration.
When you both, Nelson Mandela, arrived in that camp, and this picture, I see Thabo Mbeki standing there next to Winnie Mandela. Did you have personal interaction, both of you, with him, or were you just part of the group of soldiers who?
We were part of the soldiers that were there. There were many others, and of course there was a command structure. And you know that in the military you don't just jump around. You have to follow the order. But however, we were given an opportunity to shake hands and be amongst the leaders at the time of discussion.
And what was that like for you? Did Mandela acknowledge you? Did he touch you by the hand?
Of course he did. He acknowledged each and every soldier that was there. And in any case, he had come there for all of us. So the fact that any one of us individually might have been wanting to jump and whatever wasn't the issue. The fact that he had taken the time to come from South Africa to Zambia, and then from Zambia to come and visit us. You know, when that helicopter landed, we didn't know actually what to do. the excitement was just too much, but of course we were soldiers at the time. Those had to stand at an attention, had to stand in attention.
Are you sure you didn't
I
want
was
to
just
break
one of
ranks?
those lucky ones who had the camera. At least I could run around. Hence I managed to take the picture.
Okay, we've only got 1 minute left. Can I just ask both of you final thoughts on Nelson Mandela, but also to tell me, are you comfortable with the image that is projected that this Nelson Mandela was this happy, let's reconcile, and it seems as if South Africa, many of us, are forgetting that this is the man who led Umkhonto we Sizwe.
We're not happy with that, and I think that history will absolve us in that, because once Nelson Mandela is made to be partly what he was, and the rest of, especially the most important element of his life that brought us to where we are today is ignored, it cannot be. However, he had another side of him, and that was that of reconciliation, that of creating a South Africa that is free, non-racial, non-democratic. So we have to carry on his vision.
Kebby Maphanstoe, you get the last word.
I want to agree with Comrade Lindiwe that we're not happy in the manner that Comrade Nelson Mandela has been portrayed. This is a man who started armed struggle, sustained armed struggle, suspended armed struggle, and disbanded Umkhonto we Sizwe. But this role is not being explained. You see Nelson Mandela, Robben Island, but Nelson Mandela in the armed struggle, this story is not told.
Maybe you, both of you should bring out your books and your journals that you've written so that we get more of this still. Lindiwe Zulu, Kebby Maphanstoe, thanks so much, both of you, for your time. We now say goodbye to our viewers on ETV. We will continue our conversation about Nelson Mandela with Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula and former ANC Deputy Secretary General Cheryl Carlos on ENCA 403. To our viewers on ETV, good night.
News that moves. ENCA.com.